I want to tell you about a moment that still sits with me. I was on an advisory call with a brilliant woman named Vanessa. We're talking about an executive coach with 22 years of corporate leadership experience. Her clients were C suite leaders at major tech companies. We're talking about the kinds that build the tools that you use every day on your phone. And they loved her. Her track record was impeccable. And she was charging $200 an hour for her consulting fees. And I asked her why. And there was a long pause. And then she said very quietly, I don't know if I'm supposed to charge more than that. Supposed to, not able to, not the market won't bear it, supposed to. And that word told me everything. This wasn't a pricing problem. It was a permission problem. And the person who hadn't given her permission was herself. Today, I'm going to talk about something that most business content won't touch. Think of this as a private session between you and I. We're going to unpack the identity level reason smart, talented, experienced professionals completely undercharge. And I'll show you what it actually takes to fix it. This one is going to feel a little different than other episodes, a little less tactical, more honest, because the truth is, you can have the best pricing framework in the world. And if you don't believe you're worth the number, your nervous system will find a way to discount it. Let's get to work. I'm Luis Báez. And before you hear my credentials, I want you to know that I'm talking about this because I've lived it. I am an out gay Puerto Rican man from the South Bronx. I grew up in poverty during the 80s and the 90s. I was first generation in everything, first to graduate high school, first to go to college, first to end up in rooms at major tech companies like LinkedIn, Google, Uber, and Tesla, where nobody looked like me or came from where I came from. And for a long time, I believed that my value had to be earned every single day over and over again, that I had to outperform. I had to justify my presence. And that rest was something that you did after you proved you deserved it. That belief almost killed me, literally. I ended up in the emergency room with IVs in both arms because my body couldn't sustain the pace my identity demanded. So when I talk about the connection between identity and pricing, it's not theory, it's survival. And it's the most important conversation most business owners will never have. Here's what I've observed after coaching hundreds of management consultants, fractional executives, and boutique agency founders. The people who undercharge the most are almost never the least talented. They're usually the most talented and the most credentialed and the most experienced. And they're also the most afraid, not of failure. They're afraid of being seen as too much, too expensive, or too ambitious, or overly confident. Because somewhere along the way, they internalized the story that said, people like me, they don't charge that much, right? For some, it's a gender story. Women in particular are conditioned to be accommodating, to make things easier for others, to not ask for too much. For some, it's a cultural story. In many communities, talking about money is completely taboo. Charging premium prices feels like betraying your roots. For some, it's a survivor story. When you grew up without having much, having enough feels like greed. And when asking for more, you start to feel like you're in danger. That's dangerous territory to ask for more than what you need. And for some, it's an approval story. If I keep my prices low, more people will say yes. And more yeses means I'm valuable and I'm wanted and I'm safe. But here's what all of these stories have in common. They confuse pricing with identity. Your price isn't a reflection of your worth as a human being. It's a reflection of the value of the transformation that you create for the buyer. And those two things are completely different. And until you separate them, you'll keep discounting, not because the market demands it, but because your nervous system does. Let me name the three specific traps I see. Grab a pen and see if you recognize yourself in any of these. Trap one, the undercover expert. This is the person who has more credentials than confidence. 20 years of experience, frameworks that work in 57 countries, but they can't name their price without their voice going up at the end like it's a question. They deflect praise, right? They don't want the spotlight on them. They attribute success to luck. And then they wait for permission from some sort of external authority to tell them that they're allowed to charge more. What they need isn't more information. They need permission. And usually the permission has to come from someone who reflects their brilliance back to them with receipts. You've been doing this for 22 years. You've worked with Fortune 500 executives. You are absolutely the expert. I need you to say it with your chest. Trap number two is the capacity casualty. This person is drowning. They have 19 client calls and they have to schedule their showers. Their team can't keep up because they refuse to delegate. They're charging low prices because they confuse being busy with being successful. The irony is that their low pricing is what created the overload in the first place. If you're charging $3,000 when you should be charging $10,000, you need three times as many clients to hit the same revenue. More clients means more delivery. More delivery means less time for strategy, less time for sales, and less time for your family and your friends. The fix isn't working harder, it's charging correctly so that you can work with fewer, better clients who value what you do. Trap three is the mission and money martyr. This is the person who has a spiritual relationship with their work. They see charging well as somehow betraying their mission. They'll say things like, I only want to work with people who are driven by values while quietly struggling financially for the third year in a row in their business. Here's the reframe I give every single person in this trap. You can't serve from an empty tank. You can't change the world if your business can't pay its bills. Charging appropriately isn't the opposite of mission, it's the fuel for it. Put your oxygen mask on first, then help everyone around you breathe. So, how do you actually shift this? How do you start to move in a different direction? Well, step one, separate your identity from your invoice. Your price isn't about you, it's about the transformation that you deliver. When you quote $25,000 for a strategic investment, you're not saying, I'm worth $25,000. You're saying the transformation creates $250,000 worth in value for the buyer, and $25,000 is a rational investment to access it. And that's not arrogance, that's math. Step two is practice the number until it feels like a fact. Right now, your price lives in your head as an opinion, something you're kind of okay with, maybe if they push back, right? It needs to live in your body as a fact, something as natural as saying your name. So here's what I want you to do tonight. Say your price out loud 10 times to the mirror, to a friend, to a phone recording, to your dog, right? The investment for this engagement is $25,000. No justification, no but or flinching or anything, just the number and the silence after it. The first few times, it's going to feel really absurd. By the 10th time, it's going to start feeling real. And that's how you start to reprogram your nervous system. Step three is to find your evidence. Now, imposter syndrome thrives in a vacuum. It feeds on the absence of proof. So give yourself proof. Write down your last 5 client wins, the real outcomes, the revenue increase, time saved, promotions earned, right? The business and how it transformed. Like really list it all out for yourself, right? Look at that list and ask yourself, does the person who creates these outcomes charge $200 an hour? Or do they charge $2,000 a session, 25,000 per engagement, $100,000 per quarter? The evidence is already there. You just stopped to look at it finally. Step four is to surround yourself with people who charge more than you do. And this is one of the most underrated strategies in business. Your pricing courage is directly proportional to the pricing conversations that you're exposed to. If everyone in your circle charges 150 an hour, 500 an hour starts to feel outrageous. But if you're in a room where people casually discuss $50,000 contracts and $100,000 retainers, your $25,000 quote suddenly feels normal because it is. Because it's not about ego, it's about calibration, my friend. You need to normalize the number before you can own it. I want to leave you with something that changed my life. There was a moment a few years after my ER visit where I was building my practice and still undercharging for everything. A mentor of mine at the time looked at me right in the eye and said, Luis, you're not undercharging because you're humble. You're undercharging because you're afraid. And fear is expensive. And that hit me hard because he was right. Every dollar that I left on the table wasn't generosity, it was protection. As long as I stayed small, no one could tell me that I was reaching too far or doing the most or being outrageous, right? No one could say, who does he think he is? But here's what I learned. The people asking, who does he think he is, were never going to be my clients anyway. My clients, the right ones, were looking for someone who believed in their own value enough to charge accordingly, because that's the exact same energy they wanted to build for themselves in their own business. You were never supposed to earn your worth, my friend. You were supposed to express it. And the version of you that is keeping you broke, that's not the real you. That's the version of you that learned to play small and stay safe. Thank that version for protecting you. Then let them retire. The version of you that charges what you're worth, that presents with confidence, that says the number without flinching, that person is already inside you. They're just waiting for permission to show up. Consider this episode that permission. If this one resonated and if you recognize yourself in any of those patterns, any of the things that I've shared with you today, I'd love to talk with you. The alignment call with me isn't a sales pitch. It's the first real conversation about what your business could look like if you stopped playing small. We'll look at your pricing, your positioning, the identity stuff underneath all of it, and we'll figure out together if the booked busy paid accelerator is the right move for you. Go to bookedbusypaid.com and book a time directly on my calendar. This is Unhustling, where we build slower, breathe deeper, and still get it all done on our own terms. I'm Luis Báez, and I'm definitely in your corner.